This is Protiviti Legal Perspectives.
Welcome to the Legal Perspectives podcast series by Protiviti. I'm your host, Chad Volkert, and it's great to have you all with us today. I want to welcome Joel Wuesthoff, Managing Director within the legal consulting practice at Protiviti. He has been within the legal industry for 20 plus years, has been at Robert Half and Protiviti for many, many years, going on probably 20 years, Joel. And so welcome to the program. I know you have deep expertise in litigation, e-discovery, data management with companies, reducing their legal risk. But this growing area of data privacy and AI is something that I know you're really passionate about. So maybe share with our listeners a little bit of your background and why you love being in the business of providing solutions to both corporate legal departments and law firms.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chad. This is great. So I got interested, I think, in the early days of my career as a product liability attorney, looking at abuse and harms relating to the technology and manufacturing. And after that, got into privacy and security. And then over time, through Protiviti and Robert Half, became more enmeshed in advising companies on how they can manage risk associated with their products, their solutions, their services, and particularly looking at harms relating to fundamental rights and how those fundamental rights could be protected while taking advantage of some of the opportunities of technology. And so as we kind of moved into AI in the last couple of years, those opportunities are even greater, but so are the risks. So it kind of brings together all the work that I've done here at Protiviti with you and with the rest of the team and with our across solutions to identify risk and help remediate them while we at the same point help companies optimize their technology, their service to get to the market faster and better.
What role does data quality and governance play now in successful implementation of AI? Maybe we focus on a very distinct industry like financial services, and how can organizations enhance these aspects around how they evaluate the AI and their data?
Yeah, great question. And actually, we've got a number of different clients in the financial services space. And that space is littered with diverse models around pushing products out to the consumers, credit scoring, those kind of things. And it creates a very murky kind of environment in terms of the regulations involved, the legislative frameworks that are kind of shifting all the time. One of our clients has up to 500 use cases relating to AI, and they've got to vet all those. So it really depends on the data quality and the governance that are in place, and those aren't just nice to have, they're critical. So what we needed to do and what we're doing now is standardizing those data practices, making sure that we're harnessing advanced management tools and keeping teams well trained. So what we did with that client, I think to the point of your question, is that we really dialed up their governance game by developing a risk control matrix, an AI risk questionnaire for the clients, and really enhancing oversight over their operations. At the end of the day, we're really looking to sharpen that data governance toolkit that they have, because it's not just about compliance, it's really about making sure that we unlock AI's full potential to give our clients an edge in the marketplace.
That's great. So really partnering closely with in-house counsel, the C-suite of an organization, I'm sure with their trusted outside counsel to bring those type of advisory services together. And probably that touches on, as you're solutioning with a client, some of these potential ethical concerns associated with AI in the financial service industry. How do you advise clients to proactively address these issues?
Yeah, and let me answer that maybe two different ways. I think the number of parties on any of these engagements, from outside counsel, inside counsel, risk and compliance, IT, security, privacy, one of the things that we're doing is helping them create a RACI so that there's a clear delineation of authority. What can legal do? What should risk and compliance do? What does IT? And it kind of comes down to, what can you do from a legal perspective? What should you do from a risk and compliance perspective? And then what will you do? And ultimately, that's a business decision. But from an ethical perspective, issues of bias, data bias, privacy breaches are magnified under the technical advancement that we've seen in the regulatory microscope that we have around financial services. So what we've done proactively is to set clear ethical guidelines. That could be in the form of an AI charter, a policy, ethical guidelines, and that helps make the client's decisions transparent and ramps up in addition their ethical training. So at the end of the day, what we're trying to do with our clients is to avoid pitfalls, but also build a foundation for sustainable operational governance around their data and the data usage.
Well, great strategies and points. And so maybe taking that a step further in this day and age that organizations and financial institutions have a need and a desire to innovate, but maintaining robust risk management practices. What are you seeing on how to balance those in and around adopting various AI technologies?
Yeah, it's tricky. I think what we see in our conversations across the business is the business trying to drive AI technology, the usage of it to gain a competitive advantage, and then the risk and compliance and legal teams being resistant, or at least being perceived as being resistant. And risk and compliance legal need to ensure that controls and guardrails are put in place, but they don't want to encumber the business with so many controls that they can't maximize these opportunities and fall behind. So I think the promise of innovation around AI often clashes with those rigid frameworks of traditional risk management, and it creates a really challenging balancing act. So I think what we've tried to do is integrate those AI risks in a way that leverages AI for enhanced risk management and even enables it to identify potential risks. And by making sure that we've got that balance, we're going to ensure that we're driving towards innovation, and that's kind of front forward. But at the same point, we've got some reasonable controls and parameters so that the company isn't left vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Makes total sense. We could spend probably another hour talking financial services industry, but I know another major area and industry that you're driving a lot of efficiencies and change is in the supply chain area with manufacturing. And so I know we're talking AI, which, by the way, as we all know, is sort of a big title, and there's many different aspects of AI. But how does AI just generally change the landscape within manufacturing and supply chain management? And what new risks does it also introduce into that industry?
Yeah, there's a long tail, a long implications around introducing AI into legacy systems that will play out under the entire kind of manufacturing food chain. Unexpected tech failure on the upside will slowly disrupt the entire supply chain. So while AI is a game changer in supply chain, I think it needs to be handled with care. We're seeing our businesses doing that, setting up separate councils. You've got a strategy council, you've got kind of a governance council, and then you've got an operational council. Each one of those kind of core committees plays a significant role in ensuring that as you go forward and take advantage of that opportunity, you're baking in controls with through your contracts, through the relationships you have with third parties, upstream and downstream. So we're guiding right now to the point around manufacturing. We're guiding one of our clients through assessing AI technologies as they intake them and make sure that it's got proper control about them. That is not just looking at the ROI and the advantages and the saved costs, but it's also aligned very closely with the client's risk profile, ensuring that they don't get too far out ahead of that whole process. But ultimately, I think we all recognize that AI is going to streamline these opportunities and create greater efficiencies. But the supply chain is far and can contain unforeseen glitches. And we're very much at the nascent stage of AI development, and we have to be vigilant, I think, in terms of how that plays out with second and third parties.
Right. Well, and maybe going a little deeper in that area, because, as we know, these supply chains are across the globe for many organizations, many different, legal issues by country, employment issues, and so you start thinking about reliability and robustness of these vendors and providers sort of integrating into the larger organization to make sure things get from point A to point Z, how can manufacturers ensure more reliability and robustness of AI models in this very highly variable and dynamic production environment?
So clearly you have to have a reliable, consistent, predictable process for evaluating the products. And our clients do it. If they don't do, they recognize that importance. But ultimately, there are ways to do assessments around the reliability and accuracy of the technology from a development perspective, and the software development lifecycle is very well honed and very mature within most manufacturing companies. I think the trick is to ensure that we're embedding an AI by design, a risk control by design at the early stages, and having those decisions being transparent, documented, and flowing into the policies and representations that a company might make to the marketplace. Because the dangers are there. The consumers are very aware that it's hard to trust in AI technology. The regulators are alert, and they're going to be watching for this. So I think as we move forward, the ability of clients to ensure that there's transparent documentation and that they are adaptable in terms of taking advantage of AI, but at the same point, making sure that there's consistent reporting and metrics testing to ensure that there's reliability and ability to explain to the marketplace how the decisions are made by the technology.
How can organizations, whether we're talking financial services or manufacturing, develop a culture of continuous monitoring and improvement in and around their AI, their technology, their large language models to address evolving risks in sort of the legal perspective?
Yeah, so I think what we've seen our clients do is, through kind of a decision tree, is to ensure that the company is aware of no-go areas. What are things or use cases that are no-go, that are prohibited, that are unacceptable? And ensure at the very early stage of decisioning and development of the model that there's a clear delineation about what is okay to do from a legal perspective across jurisdictions. You got to figure out what that floor is going to be. And maybe the EU AI Act in tandem with Colorado and California. But whatever it is, that threshold around what is inappropriate or not appropriate for a company to do is critical. And then to build on top of that, where there's a kind of a continuous knowledge loop of what both the legal issues, but also kind of how to maintain, be adaptable, deploy cutting edge management tools and reporting capabilities, and to continue to foster that kind of commitment to innovation. I think that's the real risk right now, is that companies want to move fast, don't break too many things. The governance side, the risk side, the legal side said, we've got to be careful. We don't know what we don't know, and we're not going to know that for another 2 or 3 years while these laws continue to evolve and get additional guidance. But ultimately, I think what we're seeing our clients do is being proactive in understanding those risks, understanding the opportunities, and not just manage those, but to leverage those opportunities for strategic growth.
As you're thinking about maybe leaving the executive C-suite with 1 or 2 sort of real important points, what would those be for our listeners?
Yeah, I think the most important is making sure that you've got a mission statement, a charter that lays out the ground rules. And that's going to be a blending of both the opportunities encouraging innovation, but also being mindful of the potential risk to the organization, to the individual, both the employees and the marketplace. So I think having that governing document is critical. Number 2, make sure you've got a committee that is cross-pollinated with different domains. You've mentioned them: legal, security, operations, risk and compliance, HR, engineering. So there's a continual dialogue amongst all of those, so that we're each informing and each growing with the knowledge that we're gaining. And ultimately, that will set the tone, I think, for the organization, including training. And I think I mentioned training a few times. But ultimately, those will be the building blocks together with an inventory. And that's kind of one of those artifacts at a tactical level that companies need to be able to track what they're doing, why they're doing, how they're doing, so that information can be reported out to regulators and consumers. Ultimately, those will be the building blocks of, I think, a strong, maturing organization that takes advantage of those opportunities and being mindful not to go on the wrong side of the law.
Excellent, Joel. Well, we really appreciate you spending some time with us today. I know you've got an extremely busy schedule. Hopefully, our listeners will reach out to you, connect, and continue this discussion one-on-one. It's been a pleasure having you all today again.
Thank you for listening today. Find other episodes of Protiviti Legal Perspectives on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast content. And to learn more about Protiviti's legal consulting services, visit protiviti.com.